Hello, and welcome back to WaterMeterLog. Today we're going to go over how to create a pooled allocation when you have multiple meters that all utilize the same allocation. To do this, it's going to be similar to how you would create a normal meter that utilizes its own allocation by coming down here to the Create Meters button. So the first thing we want to do here is to specify that this is indeed a pooled allocation. You'll get a warning message just letting you know what you're doing and making sure this is the action you want to perform. So we'll go ahead and give the pooled allocation a name. I'm going to call this example pooled allocation. And we'll give it a total allocation of 400 acre feet. We'll set the allocation begin date as January 1st. In the state of Kansas, most allocations are given a calendar year. There will be instances where you would have a different allocation begin date that you would enter here. So we'll set that. And there's 1 year in this allocation. And I'm going to go ahead and create the first meter in this pooled allocation. And I'll give that a name of pooled meter 1. Set the state that the meter resides in and give this a permit number. The permit number is an optional field. It's for your use. This would be something the state has given to you to identify the meter, and you could use the report within our application to transfer that information to your state report at the end of the year. So we'll go ahead and give this some acres watered of 140. And we'll set a location description of north 140. And this is useful for if you had another meter with a similar name. This would help you to identify which meter you're working with. So and we'll give this a well output of 310. And this meter is in acre inches. So I'll specify that here and choose a filter. So filters will be available to you if you've created them previously. And they're handy to filter down if you have multiple meters in your application and you only want to see the meters that you're going to be working with that day. You could specify the filter and then be able to view only those meters you want to see. So because this meter belongs to Farm 1 and I've set that up previously, I'll set that filter here. And then here's where things get a little different from your normal meter creation. We're going to click on Add Another Meter, which will allow us to create our second meter in this pooled allocation that will be using the same allocation that the first meter we created is using. So we'll start and we'll give this a name of Pooled Meter 2 and specify the state that the meter resides in. And we'll give this the permit number of 457. Okay. Acres watered of 120. And we'll give this a location description of the south 120. And this can be anything you'd like. It's really just for you to identify the meter. So give this a well output of 300. And this meter is in acre feet. So even though the previous meter we're creating is in acre inches, because this is a pooled allocation, there is no correlation. Just whatever meter you have, if it's an acre feet, then you'll specify it as acre feet, and the calculations will still be calculated correctly, and everything will be viewed correctly. So give this a filter. Normally in this instance, I would give this a filter of Farm 1 as well, since it would also belong to Farm 1. But for demonstration purposes, I'm going to give this a filter of Farm 2. In case your filters are set up a little bit differently or using a different description, this will give us an ability to show you how you can filter down by each filter and what meters will show up when we do that. So we'll go ahead and set that and submit. So back on the home page, you can see things are a little bit different. There's actually a separation between your single meter and your pooled allocation. If we had multiple meters, just single meters using a single allocation, they would all display up here in this top area, and then any pooled allocations will be separated so that you can kind of easily tell which ones are which. So the first thing we want to do to this pooled allocation is start creating some readings. Currently, everything's at 0%. We haven't created any readings, and each one is going to show independently what water they're using of the allocation. And then over here, this is going to be referenced by adding up those two percentages and giving you a total percentage used of the entire allocation. So we'll get started by creating a beginning reading for the pooled meter 1. And I'll give this a date of January 1st as our beginning reading. And we'll set an amount here of 74,558. And we'll hit submit. Now if we go back to the home page, we can see that there's still 0% used because that was our baseline reading. One thing that has changed here is our date shows as January 1st as the last reading. We're pooled meter 2, because it has no readings yet, will not display a date currently. So let's go ahead and give pooled meter 1 a second reading so we can get some calculations going. And we'll give this an amount of 74,785. Let's hit submit here. And if we go back to the home page now, you can see that we're actually using 4%, on pooled meter 1 is using 4% of the total allocation. And that's referenced here on the pooled allocation image, showing that 4% of that total allocation is being used, and it's all coming from pooled meter 1 currently. So let's go ahead and create a beginning reading for pooled meter 2. I'm going to set this date as January 1st for that beginning reading, and we'll give this an amount of 8652. And let's hit submit. And if we go back to the home page now, we can see that there's now been a beginning reading. We see the date has changed here on pooled meter 2. Because it was our baseline reading, we're still at 0%, so let's give it another reading to get some calculations moving. So if we come up here and we'll give this an amount of 8695 and submit that. And now when we go back home, we can see that both meters are utilizing a percentage of our total allocation, and we can see the individual usage for each meter as well as the entire reference here. So we're using 14% of our total allocation for both meters. So now if we wanted to filter down on those meters and separate them out, I only wanted to see any meters that I'm have that belong to farm 1 or are under the filter that I specified as farm 1. I can click on that filter by, choose farm 1, and it's going to only show the pooled meter 1, which has the filter of farm 1. So you still see that total reference of the pooled allocation, but you're only seeing pooled meter 1 because it is the one with the filter for farm 1. So if we come up here and we select farm 2 as our filter, then it's going to change, and we're going to see everything that's filtered under farm 2. So example meter, the single meter with the single allocation, has a filter of farm 2 as well as pooled meter 2. When we set those filters up earlier, we set it as farm 2 for pooled meter 2 and farm 1 for pooled meter 1, so you're able to dial down and view only the meters that are relevant to you at that moment. So that's been a demonstration of how to create a pooled allocation, the differences between pooled allocations and your normal allocations, and how to kind of view each one and what water is being used for each meter, as well as the total allocation and everything. So if you have any more questions or would like a little bit more specific details on how to utilize this feature, please feel free to contact us at the email below, or you can also create a ticket within our web application by coming up to the menu icon and coming down to help. Thanks.